When was the last time that we did a podcast and we didn't have some sort of technical malfunction?
I think it's every time. It's kind of built in.
One time he forgot. What did you forget? We just had to cancel it all together.
I think that was when Dagur was going to do his
Oh,
first one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was like an audio cable, probably something.
Yeah. Nerd
Visceral.
alert.
Visceral.
Are we live?
Yeah.
We're
live.
going?
Yeah. And I'm slurping, if you're not watching, an 805 because I'm not a drinker.
Yeah.
But I love, shameless plug,
Yeah. Well,
Firestone Walker's 805 as opposed to 805. I'm saying that because hopefully they'll buy us some new equipment so I don't forget shit every
we're
time.
battling camps, though, because I got my Cal Coast hat on.
Uh-oh.
So I'm in a different,
Ooh.
yeah.
Well, this is good. It's competition.
But I'm like
Yeah.
anti-distribution. I'm like, screw the man.
Who is the man?
I don't know. It's been a while.
Well, speaking of the man,
Yeah. We're here with Sebastian Garcia. Say hello to the people.
How's it going, everybody? Happy to be here.
Remind me of your official delegation within NWTF.
Yeah. So my job title is a conservation fundraising specialist.
Okay.
Here in the state of California.
The entire state.
I have most of the state. So my region is essentially everything from like the Sacramento area to San Diego.
Well, who has the other part?
My coworker, Jolene Bagley.
Okay, Jolene.
Yeah.
Shameless plug there. Jolene. I have a donkey named Jolene. That's for another episode.
Why not this one?
Cool. So we've got Sebastian from NWTF, National Wild Turkey Federation.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
I always say a foundation. I always get it wrong.
We'll take anything.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you
Kinda
say
counts.
that because I've actually looked into why we're the federation even
Mm-hmm.
before I was hired. When I was applying, and I was like, I looked it up online. I was researching it and couldn't find anything. It even led me to look up the definition of federation and foundation.
Okay.
And the definitions are nearly identical.
You got the job, so this
So-
was a good play on your part.
However, it's my only conclusion as to why we're the federation is because we were founded in the South, and then the
Interesting. Okay.
Federation resembles Confederacy. So that's why I joke around with my Southern coworkers that's
Interesting.
why we're the federation. So
That's very
and they're
interesting.
proud of it. We're
Yeah.
the federation.
I just think of Starfleet. So
Oh, there you go.
that's,
Okay.
it gives me a sci-fi vibe, I guess.
Well,
It's a little different for me.
we are here in spring. We're headed into spring. We're the very end of February here. So spring typically means a couple things: turkeys and bears. I would say in the hunting world, oh my, mostly. So we'll dive into more about NWTF and Sebastian and all that stuff. What have you guys been up to? You guys been, well, obviously nobody's really hunting right now. Did you get any quail hunting in? Duck hunt. Sebastian's a big duck hunter. How was your duck season?
I am. I didn't get out this year as much as I have in previous years, unfortunately, just because of the nature of the job and traveling a lot. But it was pretty good, man. I mean, the days I did get to go out, I'm a refuge hunter. I don't belong to a club, so all my hunting's done on public land at the state or federal refuges. And the times that I did go out were pretty solid.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And you went out with some friends of ours,
Yeah,
Taylor and
I did.
Emma
Castanon and Matheson and stuff. And, those guys, I mean, they're okay. They're okay.
We got out together a little bit.
We did.
Yeah.
We did some quail hunting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, north
Oh, that's
of
right. You guys went to Indians
east.
the day after I went to. You took me to the
Yeah,
bad
yeah.
spot. You took him to the good spot.
Well,
Yeah.
you were invited, I think.
I was invited.
Yeah.
I
Well, we
couldn't
didn't
get
get
out of this
anything,
place,
so
yeah.
of course Matthew Jacobs got.
God got you. That's why.
He always gets a
Matthew
handful.
Jacobs is an ace. That is a guy that should be a future guest to this podcast, honestly.
Yeah, well,
Well, we have a
We're
film
working on.
coming
We're
out.
working on that.
Oh.
Yeah, there's two.
Okay.
Well, by the time this airs, is that the right word? By the time this goes live,
yeah.
we will have already had the fly fishing film go live with Dagur. And then shortly after this goes up, we'll have a wild pig film and then hunting dog film with Matt.
Matthew.
So that'll be super cool.
Well, hopefully I didn't spoil that for everybody.
No, it's
No,
good.
we've talked
it's a little
about it a
segue.
little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you went quail hunting together, and
Mm-hmm.
then John and I did some carp fishing a couple weeks ago. That was fun. Mostly we just watch Dagur carp fish.
Yeah.
And and we're headed into spring, and so if you like to hunt in the spring, there's not a lot to chase, but one of the most prized possessions in the spring is turkeys and fall.
So wait, in California, do we have fall and spring turkey?
We do.
So
yes.
what are the dates typically for those?
So the spring season is usually the last week of March, and then shotgun is the last week of March through the first weekend of May.
Okay.
And then from that point on until the second weekend of May is archery. And then the youth season, the youth have a special season the weekend before. So it's like the third weekend of March, they get to go out early.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
Cool.
yeah.
Exciting.
I know it's coming up.
And we're hopefully going to go out
Yes,
on
sir.
my first turkey hunt, maybe
That's
make a
right.
film for the Federation.
There you go.
And yeah, that'll be fun.
And yeah, let's back up a little bit. I think turkeys have one of the most, excuse me, one of the most interesting stories of conservation in America, and I think a very, very successful conservation story. And I think a large part of that obviously is because of hunters, but if we drill in a little deeper, it's because of NWTF. And so give the people, if people are unfamiliar with NWTF, a little bit of a rundown on some of the history there. And then if you can speak to like, hey, this is where turkeys were, this is where we are now, this is kind of where we're headed. Because correct me if I'm wrong, it was like a few thousand birds left.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the wild turkey was not doing very well, and if there's a really good documentary actually on YouTube that I recommend people watch. It's called The Colonel and the Fox. It was put out by Mossy Oak, and it kind of talks about how hunters at that time, largely in the South, right? That's like an area where turkey hunting is like sacred, and stuff, and that's where a lot of turkeys are, and they kind of tell stories on that documentary about how guys would go out, 20 or 30 days a season and not even hear a gobble.
Wow.
So it was like something that they were aware of. They didn't know what was happening, and they started trying to do something about it. So the NWTF came about in 1973, right? That's when we were founded. So we've just eclipsed like 50 years, I think. Now we're on 52, and we're largely credited with bringing the wild turkey back from extinction, honestly. And there was a number of things. I think they started paying attention to hunter harvest, to the habitat that turkeys were in. Predation is always really hard on wild turkeys. And there was a lot of relocation efforts and a lot of studies done during that time. And so, fast forward to now, the number of birds in the country, have eclipsed, I think like over in the millions, now. So, so really it's like, now it's like, how do we manage those populations, right? There's certain areas of the country where now we're kind of seeing like a little bit of a decline, right? So I think at some point we kind of reached like the peak capacity, and it's always hard because of, with more development, more people, that's not going to go away. So then how do we manage and sustain these lands that we have? However, out west, our numbers are actually doing pretty good.
Cool.
And everything like that. And here in California specifically, our turkeys actually, I don't know if the viewers largely know this, but they're a non-native bird to California. So a lot of the turkeys that we have here are transplanted from Texas. And I believe the first hunt in California was in 1968, right here in San Luis Obispo County.
Really? Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Wow. Yeah. So
What the first hunt? The first legal hunt for turkeys was in San Luis County.
Yeah.
So they've always done well in this area, in this climate.
They've always done well. Yeah.
Wow, that's super cool.
Yeah. So.
What was there an original species of turkey here, or was there not turkeys here way back when?
No, yeah, I don't think historically California had turkeys. Like I said,
there wasn't a native species.
There wasn't a native species.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah. So, and that's I'm not really sure why they were introduced. I'm sure it was just probably those kind of like efforts to bring it back, and introduce it to new areas, but. California has like largely a very diverse landscape and mild climate and everything. So turkeys have done very well here.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and continue to have a robust population. So.
And you just got back from the annual, I guess, what is that? It's in Nashville.
Yes.
And it's the NWTF Big Party of the Year. What's the formal name of it?
It's the NWTF Convention, our
Yeah.
national convention. Yeah. So it's in Nashville every February, and this is my second year going.
Cool.
And I mean, we just have vendors from all over the country, even the world. Honestly, I mean, I talked to guys from New Zealand and Mexico there, and everywhere in between. And it's just like our big shindig of the year. So. And
it went well. And you I'd imagine as an NWTF employee, there's a different agenda than say an outfitter or a brand or company that's going there. What is sort of your agenda in going there? What are you hoping to achieve by attending?
Yeah, so we largely like work the event.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like, I mean, it's cool, it's fun, it's in Nashville, and everything, but we run the whole convention, right? So like me specifically, I was assigned to an event for the kickoff party.
Got it.
Right. And so then
that's fun. You finished early.
Yeah. Well, you would think, but then they assign us
find something.
Yeah,
for
they
you
find
to do.
something for you to do. Yeah. So, but no, man, it's a good time, and you'll just like run past, like there's different like influencers there, and you'll just walk past somebody, and you're like, oh my gosh, like that was so and so on Instagram, or whatever, and like, TV personalities and whatnot. But
that's really cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, how did you, kind of backing it up all the way, how did you get into hunting? Like, did you grow up hunting? Was it something you came onto later in life, or how did that all start?
Yeah. So I feel like I have somewhat of a unique situation. So I feel like largely a lot of hunters, learn from their dad or their grandpa or whatever. It's like kind of passed down, right? So my dad was a Forest Service employee his whole life. He worked for the Forest Service, right? And so he didn't grow up hunting. He grew up in Yuba City in Northern California. And when he joined the Forest Service, his coworkers, the biologists there and everything like that, were hunters, right? So I think they kind of got him into it. And then when I got old enough to like get my hunter safety and actually like shoot a gun, he's like, well, let's see if this is something me and Sebastian can do together. And so we both they're like thinking back at some of our hunts now, it's kind of funny because we were both noobs. Like we did not know what we were doing. And so it's kind of funny thinking back to some of those hunts. But I mean, I cherish those memories. I don't think my dad ever realized that he was going to introduce me to my passion in life.
That's
right?
awesome.
Yeah. So he's more like now like the casual kind of hunter. Like he'll go every now and then. He's not the kind of guy that has opening day circled on his calendar like I am, But when I get home, I'm like, hey, like we're going hunting. He's like,
that's
okay.
cool.
And what were you guys chasing when you were a kid?
Largely quail.
Okay.
And turkeys.
Okay.
We went on some pheasant hunts together. Largely birds. I mean, we tried our hand at like big game, deer hunting or whatever. But this was in I should have specified this earlier. So I grew up in Quincy, California.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is in
beautiful
the
area.
north. Yeah. It was a great place to grow up. A town with like 2 stoplights.
Yeah.
But lots of critters running around to hunt. And so that was what you did. Like in the fall and in the spring is you went hunting, and in the summers you were fishing. And so up there, I mean, there was definitely a lot of mountain quail and turkeys, obviously. And so, like I said, it was mostly birds though.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
really
cool.
Yeah.
Birds are the gateway, I always feel like.
Yeah.
That's how I got started too, was birds.
I just went straight to pigs.
Yeah.
Very first thing.
Yeah. Right into it.
Yeah.
I just lost my train of thought. Oh, we were talking about the kind of the history of NWTF and the success and things like that. Talk to us on a little bit of a smaller scale, just like how NWTF has been here in California. Like, because I know here in this area there wasn't much of anything from NWTF, and you've kind of changed that. But like, where has it been? Where are we headed with NWTF, and what are some of the things you guys are working on?
Yeah, I mean. So NWTF, after COVID, I think, and all the groups, kind of had a hard time kind of coming back after COVID and stuff. And then once we got out of that, NWTF had has currently going an aggressive mission to like a 10-year plan to grow the organization and everything like that. So me being hired was like part of that, right?
Cool.
So, I mean, I started with 8 chapters when I first got brought on. Now we're like at 12 and continuing to grow. The chapter here locally was not here when I started.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah. And then so we've like doubled our presence now in Southern California specifically. A lot of the chapters are up north, which kind of makes sense in a way because that's where most of the turkeys are. However, there's still like, I'm still excited at the opportunity. I keep talking to people, keep trying to get in people's ears about starting chapters and everything like that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we continue to do good stuff, man. I mean, we do a number of things. Like we're largely involved, partner with the Forest Service.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing that goes not just in California, but in all of the West. You know, I don't have to be, I'm sure everyone listening knows about the wildfires that we have and everything. So, and you can read in detail, like on NWTF.org, but we have what we call the Wildfire Crisis Strategy. And so that's essentially like where we partner with the Forest Service and we try to reduce fuels that, basically thin out the forest so then we don't have these like crazy fires, and everything like that. I mean, fire is
Proper fire management.
Proper fire management, exactly. Fire can
Don't
be good.
get me started.
Yeah. That's the thing. Going back to my dad a little bit, right? Like I said, he's a Forest Service employee. He always said that the Smoky program was kind of deceiving because fire is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is good. But just when it's done properly.
Yeah.
Right?
Sort of how they always talk about the Disneyfication of like shooting a bear or something. Like, oh, it's so cute. I saw it in a Disney movie. It's like Smokey the Bear told me, nah, put the fire
no fires.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
That's crazy. And so this chapter specifically in SLO County didn't exist 2 years ago.
No.
Wow.
They did not. And they had a chapter, like I said, prior to COVID, and then that kind of like it died out.
Oh,
and then
okay.
I think kind of those volunteers also were kind of on their way out, you know, a little bit. They'd done their time, and then so I was able to recruit kind of new blood into it. And I think you even made a point once that you were excited about the chapter because you saw younger people be a part of it, right?
Yeah.
Like when we first started talking about it and putting it together. So. Yeah.
I think, and for last year, for being the first banquet in a long time, we had 120 people or so, 100 people somewhere, something like that.
No, it was a solid turnout.
Yeah, it was fun. It was super fun.
Yeah.
So
And that was my first time ever going to anything like that.
conservation banquet wise.
Yeah, it was like I felt a little out of place at first, but it didn't take long to feel like super comfortable, and it was really interesting just to be around a community of hunters. That was a first for me. So
really?
pretty cool. And I had a great time. So
it was fun.
good job.
We got another one coming up. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
What about one of the things that I'm like really interested in? I keep going back to like biology. We're talking about fire. We're talking about like turkeys like doing well. Coyote hunting in California. Is NWTF involved in? For people that don't know, they're trying to like limit the amount of coyotes we can kill, and we were talking earlier, ground nesting birds are specifically vulnerable to things like foxes and other predators like that because they eat the eggs and then the turkeys don't reproduce. Is NWTF involved in that at all? Have they voiced anything on that?
That has to get approved, first of all. So our biologist, actually, I was just talking to her the other day. She's reading up on that.
Oh, cool.
On that. Yeah, and then we have to get it approved by the state board. Yeah. So I think we're still trying to
figure out how to weigh in on it.
Yeah, exactly, in a way. Because really, like, the criteria is like on any bill, right, is like, does it follow the North American model of wildlife conservation?
Sure. Yeah.
Right? Does it benefit our mission? Which the mission... Probably should have said this earlier. The mission of the National Wild Turkey Federation is to conserve the wild turkey, and my favorite, to preserve our hunting heritage. Yeah. Right, and we're very vocal about it, to preserve hunting. Right. So, does it meet that criteria? And so we're still going through it, but we're in support, like I said, of whatever it conserves our wildlife, and we do it with the North American model.
Meets up with that mission. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think about that, and turkeys specifically, and how those dogs affect those turkeys. I call them dogs, and maybe I'm Disneyfying them a little bit. But, interesting. Cool. Well, I look forward to seeing what they think about that. Should we just talk turkey hunting for a while? I just nerd out a lot on the biology.
So, okay.
And I know John's like foaming at the mouth.
It's mostly this 805 made by Firestone Walker. No. So for me, we're planning on going on my first turkey hunt this season. What should I expect? Like, tell me about the experience. Like someone like me going into it for the first time, like, should I be prepared? Is
turkey hunting hard to I think that's a good question to ask for people that have never been, is like, can just anybody go turkey hunting?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. I think it's actually a great species to introduce like the new hunter.
Cool.
Honestly. Yeah. And one reason being is that they are like a very vocal species, right? So like you can communicate with them back and forth. Like you might take somebody hunting, like let's say deer, right? And if you're hunting in an area where there are no deer, or maybe it's just a low density of deer, you might not see something, right? That new hunter might, maybe get a little bored or what. I mean, I wouldn't, right? But someone in theory.
Yeah. Especially young kids, maybe.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, anyone, if it's just their first time out, it can be discouraging if you're, and you're nothing's happening.
Yeah. You're just like, I'm not seeing anything. Like, what is all the, but like with turkeys, it's like you hear that gobble. And it could be in the distance, it could be right behind you or whatever, and it just gets you juiced.
Totally.
I mean,
it's true. I live in Cambria, and there are turkey. I know there's a lot of residential areas that they are, all over the place, but in Cambria, there's a lot. Like we'll have, we have empty lot next to our house, and there's times where like there's like 30 in there. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, cool, turkey. Like you hear it, but I feel like it's probably a lot different when you're out there with a shotgun and you hear it versus when it's up the street.
Yeah.
I would imagine that's probably a very different feeling because, potentially it's something, because I'm saying this because I think a lot of people that listen to this podcast, maybe they're not hunters and they're like, whatever. I see, my wife says that all the time. She's like, why don't you just go get one of the turkeys that's in our yard? I'm like, if only. But yeah, so I think that's what's interesting about it, is that there's something about when you're out there hunting, for all those people that are listening or watching that haven't experienced that, where it changes everything. Like everything is so different. And so I can imagine that just hearing that sound, knowing that you have a gun and there's a chance you might get it, must be just so exciting.
Well, first of all, you touched on something that I was hoping was going to come up, is that the turkey is one of my greatest enemies. Honestly, like
seriously. We don't need to help those birds. They eat my flowers.
Exactly. Like I'll have a booth somewhere, or we'll be at a banquet, and it's like, I have them in my backyard every day. There's plenty of turkeys, and I want. I'm presentable, and everything, but I just want to roll my eyes in the back of my head. I'm like, dude, you just don't get it. You know what I mean? And we do so much more than just save the turkey, right? But yeah, we do have robust populations, and in other states, so that's not the thing. You won't see them in your neighborhood, right?
Right.
But yes, you're 100% correct. Where, it's a totally different story where you see when you see turkeys in your neighborhood, or when you're in the woods. You're in a tree with all camo on, and it's coming, and you've been there cold all morning, and it's gobbling, and it's a completely different feeling. So
it being there when you want it to be there is different than like, oh, there happens to be a turkey in my yard randomly.
Or it'll just sneak up on you. They're good about doing that sometimes. There's been plenty of turkeys that have surprised me. I'm like, whoa.
I feel like you told me something when you're out with a friend or something like that, and it just like walked right in front of them or something, they didn't even see it.
Yeah. That one specifically, if we want to get into a quick turkey story real fast. That was a first time.
Here.
Yeah. That was a first time hunter that joined one of my chapters, another new chapter in Riverside, California. And, he had explained to me his frustrations with turkey hunting. And he's like, man, dude, I've tried the past couple years and I just am scratching my head. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, come with me. Like I'll take you. He hadn't had a mentor at this point. Right.
Yeah.
So I took him out, and, we got there. The cool thing about turkeys too, is you don't have to necessarily always be there right early in the morning.
Right.
Right. Like if a turkey, they fly off the roost, and then they'll hang out, a gobbler will hang out with his hens, and then they'll go to nest around 9 or 10 a.m. He's looking for another hen,
Yeah.
So we got there about mid-morning, and we set up in a spot that I knew was pretty good. There were turkeys there for sure. And I think within like 15, 20 minutes. And it's not always this way. So, don't expect it the first time. But like.
It is on YouTube.
Yeah. There was like a gobble, like a distant gobble. And I was like, no kidding, And then sure enough, like we were posted up on this tree. Like I was facing one way, he was facing this way. And, for the viewers like listening to it, one of us was facing right, one of us was facing left kind of thing. And sure enough, man, I see this redhead pop up over some bushes. And I'm like, oh, he's coming. And they jump this barbed wire fence, and it's a jake and 2 hens. And we have like our decoys kind of split in between us. And unfortunately, they're coming in on my side.
Are you calling them at all? At this point,
if they're on a string, I won't call.
Yeah,
and he kind of was.
Yeah,
right. And the thing is,
what does that mean if they're on a string?
Like he's coming to you.
Okay.
Yeah, like he doesn't need any more convincing otherwise.
Gotcha.
Right. Yeah. So he had a couple hens with him, but this was also a jake, so there can be a little more unpredictable, Mm-hmm. And he was coming, but the only thing is that they were coming on my end of things, right? The hens were actually like in front of them, and they were coming. And so they walked past me over to the guy I was taking,
mm-hmm.
and they came within like 2 feet from him. He told me after the fact.
Was
that
he wasn't sleeping? What?
Yeah. No, he told me his heart was beating out of his chest. He couldn't believe it. Like he'd never been that close to a turkey
That's
before.
so crazy.
Yeah. And he was like, that's insane. And then I really wanted that jake to cross, because I could have shot the jake,
mm-hmm.
but I wanted him to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I was like looking at it, and then maybe they have incredible eyesight.
Yeah. They
right.
do.
So that's the thing, is like you move a little bit and they're going to see you, And so,
Yeah.
and I was just like looking at it, and then he kind of comes and I kind of see him jerk his head a little bit, and I'm like, oh man, like I was just trying to stay still as a statue,
Mm-hmm.
and sure enough, I think he knew something was up. He knew
Mm-hmm. something
was up. And then he kind of walks back out of sight, and I was like, no.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could kind of see him like walking away, and then I turned to my buddy and I was like, hey, he's right over my shoulder. Like I'm whispering this, he's right over my shoulder. Like I feel like if you stand up, you'll see him,
Mm-hmm.
and you can shoot him. And he's like, okay, should I do it now? I'm like, yeah. Do it now. And he gets up, and then I'm kind of like sitting there, but he gets up, and I hear him like running. He's like sprinting, and I'm like, what the heck? Like what happened?
Wait, the turkey or the guy?
The guy.
The guy.
The guy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like they're out of view from me now. So that I'm like, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
And like I'm seeing the hens like run off in this
Yeah.
other direction, and then all of a sudden I'm see the direction he goes, and I'm like, okay, and I'm waiting for a shot. Nothing, and I'm like, okay, and then he comes back. He's like kind of like a little head
sheepish.
down. Yeah, a
Yeah.
little sheepish. I'm like, what happened? He was like, I didn't think you had to run after him. He was only like 20 yards away. And then he's like, well, I couldn't see the beard, so I didn't shoot. And in that moment, I was like, you did the right thing.
Yeah.
You did the right thing,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But he later told me, he was like, Sebastian, that was the best hunt I'd ever had in my life.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and that to me was like, I was like, really, man? Like
Yeah.
that was cool to hear.
Yeah, sure.
You know?
Sure.
And I mean, he even said, he's like, I was already super invested in turkey hunting. I'm, 100 times that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're listening and you need a turkey hunting mentor for the best hunt of your life,
So you
but you have to be an NWTF member.
Yeah, you have to be an NWTF member.
So speaking of beards, you tried to, or you explained the difference to me between, a Tom and a Jake.
Yeah.
And I kind of remember what you said. I'm still learning all this stuff.
Oh yeah.
So maybe for me a little bit, but also for people out there that don't know what the difference is, what is that? And maybe what's some of the nuance? Because you explained that a little bit too, like when certain people, maybe even in certain areas around the country, think it's okay or not okay to shoot, depending on how old they are or how pronounced their beard is.
Yeah,
or
a
whatever.
little turkey. You're asking for a little turkey 101.
Turkey 101.
Turkey
Yeah.
101. We can do that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really happy you brought that up, and I'll get into that in a second. But yeah, generally, so in like the first year, of a bird's life, right, then they're still like they're like considered a jake, right? Or like a male, a juvenile male turkey is called a jake, right? And so then their beard will hardly be protruding. And a beard, for those of you that aren't familiar with turkey biology, is like a kind of like a different kind of feather that pops out of their chest.
Like a chest hair.
Yeah, like a chest hair kind of. Yeah, and it's like a beard, right? It comes out. I'm sure you've probably seen it. And then, anyways, so when they're a jake, it's only maybe like a couple inches long, maybe. Yeah, and then some hens have
sometimes
beards.
it's very short.
Yeah. Oh yeah, very short. Yeah, and that's actually how you know, and that's why the guy in that story didn't shoot, because in order in California for a bird to be legal, you have to have a beard protruding from the chest.
Right.
Yeah. So it can be just barely out, but if you see it out, it's a legal bird, right? And so that's generally the first year of their life. And then so the average age of a turkey is like 3 to 4 years old, right? So if you get a 3 to 4 year old tom, so like a tom is a adult male turkey, then it's anywhere from, it's 2 years or older at that point, right? But a true like mature bird with big spurs and a long beard is probably going to be 3 to 4 years old.
Yeah. So the funniest part is that for an avid hunter and turkeys being hunted in the spring, you're probably 1,000 times busier in the spring with your job. So do you even get out to spring turkey hunt?
There's been several meetings taken on my phone with an AirPod in, yeah, I mean, that's just the way that it is, man. I mean, obviously most hunting seasons are in the fall. Right. And so banquet season, like what I compare to like an agriculture harvest season, is in the spring.
Yeah.
And it just happens we're the Turkey Federation, where you can hunt them where the primary season's in the spring. So yes, definitely. I mean, I am answering calls all day long, like working weekends.
How many banquets do you have during this year? How many banquets are you doing?
Like 15 events?
15.
Yeah.
And that's that's not like a one-day thing for you, really.
No, I mean,
they're held on one day, but you're
right. Yeah. And sometimes I mean, out west, generally guys have around that many, but even back east, like RDs will have, like 25 plus.
Wow.
Honestly, which is crazy. But you look at all
working hard for those conservation dollars, man. That's awesome.
No kidding, man. I mean, generally too, like the towns over there, like a little closer together and stuff. Like we travel long distances in the west, but anyways, the spring is the primary time to fundraise. Okay. That's when it is. And but I mean, I get out mostly, in the middle of the week, the weekends you're hunting. Actually, I mean, if you're really nice to your volunteers and they have turkey hunting spots, you can do their banquet on Saturday, then go with them on Sunday.
Oh, that's, be really nice to your volunteers.
Yeah. So make sure you take care of your volunteers. Yeah. So that's might have happened a time or two, but it's, we make time. We make time.
For sure. And then I would be remiss if we didn't plug the banquet here in Slow County. What's the date on that one? I should know this.
Saturday, April 26th.
April 26th.
Yeah. At the Pavilion in Atascadero.
Yeah. So if you listen to this and you're local and you want to come hang out with us, I'll be there. John will be there. Sebastian will be there. A bunch of other really amazing, cool people will be there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'm definitely going to get some more raffle tickets.
Because
last time I think I did like the card game or something.
Yeah.
Once.
Yeah.
And I'm looking around during that raffle, and there's like one table that won like 5 guns and a bunch of other things. And I'm like, man, I need to get at least a few more.
Kyle from Rocky Mountain Elk won like 4 things.
Dude, yeah. So if you come, show up, get some raffle tickets, because you might win something cool.
Absolutely.
And you're going to support. And what are some of the other things that you could win if you are entering in? What are the types of things that you guys have?
I mean, obviously, like guns, like you said. We have plenty of those. Our core package consists of like a bunch of unique items that you won't get anywhere else. This year we have like a cigar humidor, a dartboard. We got like several like outdoor kind of like camping items and everything like that. We'll have like coolers with like the logo on them. So there'll be a lot of fun merchandise. And the banquets, if you haven't been to one, like you need to come. right? Like it's like a carnival for adults.
It is fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I will
Food's good.
have hunted the turkey that I won at last year's banquet by this year's banquet.
There
So
you go.
hopefully
So
I'm
yes,
successful.
Tim won.
That was the live auction.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
that was a
that
live.
was the
So they
live
have a live
auction.
auction too. And last
Yeah.
year, Tim won an auction bid for a spring turkey hunt.
Turkey hunt,
which he's
yeah.
going to do
Up
this
in the
spring.
Sonora area, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super
You'll have
cool.
to let me know how that goes.
I will. We will. Maybe we'll just eat that bird together. And
There you
then,
go.
and then Sheepshead will be donating stuff to the NWTF. We're big fans of NWTF and what they do and how hard they work. And Sebastian has become a good friend and is very supportive of Sheepshead as well and the Curious Hunter. So we're excited about it.
Yeah, and it's really cool for me to like, at what point I'm like, am I not new to this? I feel like I'm going to feel new to this for a very long time because I'm only maybe 3 years into hunting. But it's so cool when you first get into it and you learn about how conservation is such a huge part of hunting and when you buy ammo or firearms or tags, like all that money is going somewhere, but it's a whole other thing when you learn about these organizations because that's cool. That's cool that like our money is going in through these purchases, but to learn more about the plethora of organizations that are out there also doing things through donations, you start to realize how self-sustained hunting and fishing really is. And it's really neat, I think, to start bumping up against that. And so I really hope that people who are listening to this, again, that are maybe new or they've never, hunted, maybe they've fished maybe here and there, are learning more and more about that aspect. Not just the conservation, but I think how this type of, thing that you can do to get out and recreate is self-sustained in so many ways. And that's really cool. There's not a lot of things like that, I think. So it's just really neat.
Yo, absolutely. I mean, I think, sportsmen and women, they care about the wildlife more than anyone, right? And then groups like NWTF and the other organizations, NGOs, it just shows, right? Like people can rally behind a species that they like to hunt, of course, but that's only, the excess of that species, right? Like they volunteer for these organizations because they want to see it be around forever, right? And so that passion and kind of leads you into volunteering and giving back, right? If you were always just taking and taking and taking, there'd be nothing left.
Yep.
And so
totally.
NWTF, like we mentioned before, is a great story of how a group of hunters could come together and realize that they needed to do something and bring back this animal from extinction. And now where we have healthy bird populations is pretty amazing, honestly. So.
And I think it's important to note, like, these organizations so often work together to make sure that bills are passed or not passed, or the right people are educated about the right thing. So don't feel like if you don't belong to any of these organizations and you're not giving back yet that you can't belong to 2, 3, 4, 5, as many as you can want or afford or are interested in. I know I'm up to 4 or 5 myself. So, and it's important to me. I like to know what's going on with them, and I like to support them. And I do believe in their missions. And if there's one that I don't, I'm not a member. But so yeah, and a lot of these organizations are signing on to each other's efforts to make sure that the right thing is done for wildlife and conservation in America.
Yeah. And maybe before we go, I know it's not about turkeys, but it'd just be cool to hear about, how last year was for you. I know you got a coos deer, a few other things. So what were you up to in 2024?
My hunting endeavors, you mean? Yeah. Man, that's, I was really lucky, actually. I made out like a bandit in Arizona. And I'm obviously a turkey hunter. I'm like, Tim mentioned before, I'm a waterfowl hunter, and I actually have taken up big game hunting in like my 20s and stuff. and been putting in for tags all over the West. That's like a side hobby for me. Well, the side hobby is learning all the draws. In the
Right.
different
Yeah.
states.
It's like it's almost a side job.
Dude,
Yeah, it's
like,
brutal.
I have an Excel sheet
Yeah.
of like Arizona, Montana, Utah.
I have
like,
the same thing.
Yeah, and it's like it's very interesting to me how the different points work, the percentage of tags that go to out-of-state hunters, all that stuff, and it's like a science, right? And so, anyways, I drew a archery antelope tag in Arizona, which anybody who knows about the draws, antelope in Arizona is very, very hard to draw.
Yeah.
Like extreme. I drew. Some people, like, if there's Arizona listeners, they're going to get mad, but I drew with one non-resident point, which is unheard of. I talked to a resident hunter, a resident who had a way higher percentage to draw than I did.
Right. Yeah.
And he'd been putting in for 15 years.
You can't hit them if you don't swing at them.
And that's why I put in.
Yeah.
And in archery, generally, in any
A little bit better odds. Yeah.
it has better odds. But I drew an archery antelope tag, and then I drew a rifle coos deer tag. That one wasn't as hard to draw, but still, like, it was pretty lucky. And so went out to Arizona in September, and I spent 12 days of the 14-day season chasing those speed goats around and came back empty-handed. It was rough. However, I wouldn't trade it for anything. It was amazing. I love hunting Arizona. I just, just because of how rare the tag is, I wish I would have been successful, but, it just, sometimes you eat humble pie. So, and it is what it is. And then
Tag soup.
I came back from that, got right into A-zone rifle, which is A-zone's obviously the tag that's around here, deer. And I did harvest a buck on a property that I have access to near Lopez Lake. And I don't even feel bad telling you that because that's my, here's another hack real fast. I know we're trying to wrap this up.
No. Take your time.
But that's the thing. I hear it sometimes from volunteers. They're like, of course the NWTF rep has access to this piece of property or whatever. And it's literally one tiny piece of property. And I hand wrote like 100 letters to landowners and mailed them.
You earned it.
I was, and then I had, of those letters, 2 people called me back to say no. And one very generous landowner was like, you can come hunt my property. And there has been a pile of turkeys killed off that property since, let me tell you.
Hey, I just want to add to that, though, too, because I think, of course, the guy that works for NWTF, of course, the guy that owns Sheepshead Outfitters. Honestly, most of the, we'll call them hookups that I have, come from volunteering with conservation orgs.
Yeah.
So if you're out there and going, I don't have any place to hunt, or nobody will give me their marks on public land, like, go start building that community with your conservation groups, and there's no better reward than that. Like, you're doing the work for free, but it pays in different ways.
Yeah. I'm happy you said that, because my chapter president for the Riverside chapter said that. He's like, the reason I joined was because I wanted to connect with other hunters in my area.
Heck yeah.
And
find mentors and find maybe you just moved to a new area, That's why I got involved with backcountry hunters and anglers when I lived in Texas, because I moved to an area I needed a community, and I knew those guys were similar to me and gals. So if you're sitting there going like, of course Sebastian has a private, well, he's out there volunteering. He's out there writing handwritten letters.
I mean, even for me too, like I had a friend that got me into hunting, and that was the only person I was hunting with. And then kind of made another friend through fishing, and we did a little bit of something, but I didn't really have like a hunting community. And then I met Tim, met you, and now I have like tons of hunting friends. Like, it's crazy to think like the 3 of us have gone hunting like separate times we talked about earlier, and probably about 5 other people that I've met through this shop.
Yeah.
And through the banquet, that I even if I haven't gone hunting with them, I consider them a friend who I can talk to about hunting and learn from. So it's like, I mean, to that point too, it's the organizations, it's the banquets, it's finding a shop like this.
Community.
If other communities are lucky enough to have, a community, I think, like this one that's barely a year in, which is another thing we should promote.
And we will plug that, but that's the same NWTF. Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation has a new chapter in this area. So this is all new community building, you know? And so if you want in on the ground level, right now is the time to do it. Come here, buy a bunch of stuff, sign up for NWTF, RMEF, DU, all that stuff.
And it really, I know it can seem a little like overwhelming, especially if you were someone like me. Like I was really nervous going to the banquet, you know, and I knew Tim. Like you invited us. So even though I knew you, I was still a little nervous. I felt like I was saying earlier, out of my element. But it was like, it's crazy. Like once
in
you
your
go,
defense, sometimes I feel out of my element in those places too.
See it and that, but that's the thing. When I was there, I was like, I feel super comfortable. Everyone's so friendly. And I think that is a big barrier to get into hunting is you feel like you're going to be maybe turned away.
Yeah.
Because
or even like ridiculed in some
way. Or talked down to, or you're not going to fit in. But like for the most part, I would say 99% of the people, maybe even higher than that.
Yeah. No,
are so inclusive and welcoming. So it's, I think
everybody's happy you're there and everybody's there for the same reason to give back. So
totally.
Yeah. And John, you know, you're a great example of like R3, right? As I feel like the whole Curious Hunter platform, right? The whole R3 movement, retain, reactivate and recruit. I mean, it's like, and that's a big thing that NWTF is a part of, right? And it's like really like me too. Like I said in the beginning, like if my dad wasn't recruited to hunt, I probably, you know, who knows what would happen to me. So the fact that you're able to get into this community and like you're saying, have welcoming people, I think says a lot about the people that do it. You know, hunters, like I said, no one cares more about wildlife than hunters for sure.
Yeah.
So
cool. Thanks for coming by, Sebastian.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it.
It. It's good to hang out with you again. Yeah. Miss you.
Thanks a lot, man.